Hi and welcome back to A Library of Books and Daydreams. So today I am here with a big video. It is my top 10 reads of 2020. So I read 80 something books in 2020. Let's see. So I read 87 books in 2020. I think that's probably my most ever in a year. Yeah. And these are my top 10. I wasn't planning on doing them in a complete order. I was planning on maybe doing like a top 3 or just a top, like Alex did, just a favourite and then just do the others in no particular order. But once I got started doing the list, I ordered them just naturally. So I am going to go from 10 to 1. I think if you know me, or even if you've seen these videos, you might be able to guess what some of my favourites were, or what will make my top 3, or even what will be my favourite, but hopefully some of the others might surprise you. And I've just gone through all of my 5-star reads, which actually there really wasn't that many of. There was probably only like less than 15 5-star reads for me this year. A lot of them came out at like 4 or 4.5, I think. It's interesting to look at my stats, but anyway. So these are some of my 5-star reads from this year. Some of them I read like way back in January, and others I literally just finished in December, so there is a very even spread across the year. So let's get started, let's dive into this and go with my first one, which was a real surprise for me, and this was Rules for Being a Girl. This is the absolutely beautiful proof copy. I really don't like the normal paperback, but I love this copy so much. So this was not something I would have read unless I got sent two, don't know why, proofs of it, one of which I gave to my brother's girlfriend and the other which I read. And as I said, I probably wouldn't have read it if I hadn't been sent a proof copy, but I read the back of it and I thought actually this sounds quite interesting. And I ended up absolutely devouring this book. I read it in pretty much a day. I just sat there and I didn't want it to end. It was amazing. It was about kind of sexism and feminism and growing up as a girl in high school, and it was just really, really interesting, and it's about the male gaze. There was so much heavy stuff, but it also was like such a quick read, and it's one that I think every girl should read growing up, and it ended up meaning a lot more to me than I expected it to. So I would absolutely recommend this one. I wish I'd had this one a couple years ago, or like 5 years ago when I was a teenager. This was just brilliant, and this is my 10th favourite book of the year. And the next one, the 9th favourite book, was Boy Queen by George Lester. I read this one as part of Non-Binary November, and this was just an absolute delight. It was fabulous. I loved it so much. This is also a Macmillan proof copy, and I just realised because I put these next to each other and I was like, they look pretty similar. But this was just amazing. This is about a guy who gets into drag, and I had know absolutely nothing about the world of drag, and I was dragged along for the ride, no pun intended, and I just absolutely loved it. And if you want some light-hearted fun that will make you laugh but also make you cry, because there are so many deeply upsetting things, but also it's just amazing to see Robin overcome them, and I absolutely adored this book so much. So this was my 9th favourite book of the year. My 8th favourite book of the year I read all the way back in February, I think. This came out in February, and this is also a proof copy. And this was Yes, No, Maybe So. This was just amazing. It's about two teenagers who get into politics in America, and I really don't understand that much about American politics. I am not invested in it, but I do follow it, but I don't really know about local politics, and I didn't really expect this one to resonate with me as much as it did, but the characters were lovely and I just shipped them so hard, and they were so cute, and seeing them get into the world of politics was really interesting and from their perspective. And also the discussion of like religion in this book and race was also really, really interesting, and I just think this was brilliant, and yeah, really, really enjoyed this one. So my 7th favourite book of the year was also a massive surprise for me, and this was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. The fact that this made it into the list above Loveless, which I also absolutely adored, but I just this one resonated with me in a way that I really didn't expect. This was about two people who are just friends and they do not fall in love, and that is the premise of the book. It is about a boy and a girl who are friends. And that whole idea I just really, really loved. But this is one of Alice's older books, and having read a lot of her newer ones and read her older ones, I expected to not like this one as much because she's definitely really developed as a writer. But this was absolutely beautiful. I couldn't put it down. I read it in like a day when I was ill, and I read it partly on audiobook and partly in physical format. And the short chapters and different points of view, I just absolutely loved it, and I did not want to put it down. And I can't tell you how much I love this book, so this was my 7th favourite book of the year. My 6th favourite book of the year I actually still don't have a copy of, because I borrowed it from Courtney and I read it as part of Non-Binary November. I'm definitely going to get myself a copy, I just haven't ordered it yet. And that was Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. That book was amazing and I just loved it so much. It gave me an insight into being trans that I have never had from another book, and I just absolutely loved it. And it was so emotional, and I read it just after I read I Wish You All the Best, which was also really emotional. And the amount of stuff that Felix goes through in the book really broke my heart. And when he found out kind of more about himself and who he was, I was just left with like all over body tingles, and there is so few books that make me feel the way that I did when Felix found out who he was. And I just absolutely loved reading his story and reading about his friendships and his family and what he went through as a trans man. I just thought it was amazing, and I admire the author so much for the story that they have put out there into the world. So the next one on this list, and my 5th favourite book of the year, we are now into my top 5. I don't think this one could not have made my top 5 because it was a real shock, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. And this was The Lido by Libby Page. I wanted to read this one because it's about outdoor swimming, and I really enjoy outdoor swimming. It's something that I've kind of done for a while now, probably about 10 years, and my family kind of have gotten into wild swimming, but I have not. I think I've only swam in a Lido maybe once or twice. But this is about a Lido in London, and actually a customer recommended this to me. It was on my radar and I really wanted to read it, and then a woman came into the bookshop I worked in, and we ended up talking about books like this and wild swimming, and she wild swam herself. And then she recommended me this book, and I was looking at it because I can see where it is from the till at work, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it. And thank you to that random woman, because I absolutely adored this book so much, and it was such a heartwarming read, and Libby is such a heartwarming person, and just go and follow her on Twitter because her photos and her smile warm my heart every day. But this book is like a warm cup of tea after you come in from the snow. It's absolutely beautiful. It is about a woman who is lost, and she is finding herself, and she finds herself through the people around her and her local community and her Lido, and she gets into wild swimming, and she gets dragged into wild swimming by this woman in the community, and it is their story of helping save Brockton Lido. Is it called Brockton in the book? I don't actually know whether it's called Brockton Lido in the book, but that's what it's based on in real life, and I really want to go and swim there. So amazing book, and I can't wait to read more from her. I have an arc of the 24-hour cafe that I still haven't read, and really makes me excited for more adult contemporaries. And we're getting into the top 4. My 4th favourite book of the year, I've already mentioned it once or twice, it was I Wish You All the Best by Mason Diva, and oh my god. I read this as part of Non-Binary November, and this one also opened my eyes in a way that I didn't expect. I didn't know I needed, and I really did. Because there is not a book out there that is told from the perspective of a non-binary person coming out like this one does. It's heartfelt and emotional and beautiful, and I absolutely loved reading Ben's story and them coming out to their parents, and then they are kicked out and have to go and live with their sister, who takes them under her wing, and her and Thomas, her husband take Ben under their wings, and reading their story was such an emotional roller coaster, but I absolutely adored it. And Mason has also brought out a novella in ebook format which is called I'll Be Home for Christmas, and it is also heartwarming and beautiful, and I absolutely loved it too. And the next book on this list, I'm now getting into my top 3, which is crazy. I actually read this one, I think this might have been my first read of the year. I read this all the way back in January, but I fell in love with it, and that is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. I knew I was going to love this book from the moment I read Everything Leads to You, which is her other novel, which ended up being my favourite read of the year that I read it in, I think. But I just absolutely fell in love with this one. It is about a girl whose granddad has died. It's been a year since I read this, so I cannot remember everything. But I think it's about a girl whose granddad died, and it's told from the perspective of her before he dies and after he dies, and then there is a relationship, and this girl visits her at her college over Christmas, from what I remember. And this girl knew her before her granddad died, and then appears in both perspectives. But it's about friendship and love and family and grief and loss, and it is absolutely heartbreaking, but I loved it so much, and I cried, and I read it in a day because it's only quite short. And it has still come out in my top 3. And my second favourite book of the year, and it was definitely between the next two to who would get the top spot, and this was Serpent and Dove. I read this one in October, I think the very, very start of October, and I had no idea how much I would fall in love with it, but oh my gosh, this book is amazing. And I've definitely found, and this might be a hint for my favourite book of the year, that I have a niche in absolutely loving French fantasy, or fantasy set in France. And this one, absolutely beautiful. I fell in love with it the moment they went into a patisserie, and the discussion of the food was amazing. And I just love the discussion of the food in this book. It was so cool and absolutely beautiful, and I'm going to go and get and show you in a minute a book sleeve that my lovely friend Jo got me for Christmas, because it has a picture of them in the patisserie, and she was like, I remember you saying how much you love that scene, so I wanted to buy you the book sleeve. But yeah, this is beautiful, and it's about romance, but there's so many things in this book. There is romance that I absolutely loved, but it's enemies to lovers that is done so well. And the setting was beautiful. I did not want to be out of this world. I just wanted to carry on reading it. I haven't read Blood and Honey yet. Obviously I've had it since it came out, and I'm super, super excited to read it. I may read it in the next couple of months, and then read the third one when it comes out in September, I think. So this was my second favourite book of the year. And this is the book sleeve that Jo got me. It has the same print on both sides. It is absolutely beautiful. It's massive, and it has this lovely polka dot material in the inside, and it is from Book Besties UK. Absolutely brilliant book sleeve. I love it, and this is one of my favourite scenes of the book, so just love that book sleeve. Anyway, we are on to number 1. I think some of you have probably already guessed what this was, and this was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. My baby. I now have 3 copies of this book. I have this Waterstones exclusive one, and then I have the standard bronze edition, and then all the lines on it are bronze instead of gold, and then I also have the American edition that arrived the other day, and I absolutely love that one too. I read this one about a month ago. I read it at the start of December as a buddy read with a few other people, and I loved reading it as a buddy read, and we kind of updated each other on what our thoughts were every day. We read about 80 pages a day, read it over 5 days, and I was reading partly on audio and partly in physical format, and I just absolutely fell in love with this book. I've never read a book like it. This is about Addie LaRue, who is immortal, but she is immortal, but on the other end of the scales, Nobody remembers her, so she can live forever and she's free, but nobody ever remembers her. And then she meets somebody who remembers. I can't put into words how much I adored this, and I want to cry thinking about it because it made me cry so much, and the characters were just so amazing and their story was so beautiful, and I love them so much, and I loved that this was set all around the world, and I loved all of the major like settings in France and in New York. A lot of the book takes place in New York, and the end of this book made me sob like a book has never made me sob before, and I was like, I had tears rolling down my face, and when I was sobbing for like 20 pages or something, probably more than that, and I couldn't stop crying, and when I sat up my pillow was wet from where I'd been crying because I was just crying at it like for ages. But you broke my heart, V. Schwab, but you also took my heart with this book, and it is probably the best book I've ever read, like my favourite book ever. So that has been my favourite books of 2020. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what your favourite reads of 2020 were. And I'm very excited for another good year of reading in 2021, and I can't wait for some of the sequels to the books I read this year, and I'm just very excited to get started on another year of reading. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you. Bye.